Hello, everybody. I apologize for the sort of out of nowhere and disjointed cold open here. But upon recording this video that is part of the live stream, it is September 11th, and I would just like to express my gratitude and condolences to the first responders who lived through and those who passed during that fateful and violent day. I'd also like to express my condolences and gratitude to those civilian American heroes like Todd Beamer on United 93, who was behind the Let's Roll tapes, a very gut-wrenching but inspiring audio to hear, as well as the victims who narrowly escaped and unfortunately those who did not escape the September 11th attacks inside the World Trade Centers. May they rest in peace, and most of us, like myself, who was in fourth grade when that happened, it is something that is hard to forget, both voluntarily and involuntarily. I will not forget, and I can't forget all at the same time. Because this is a Oregon Duck specific sports show, I do cover college sports in general as I do, but this is a community for Oregon Duck fans. As Oregon Duck fans, there is another elephant in the room that happened on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, just 48 hours ago. So definitely much more recently than the September 11th attacks. And that is the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was an avid Duck fan for quite a long time. I myself have been a fan since 1998. I do not know if he was a fan of the Ducks that long and as long as other people. But he's been a fan of the team, an avid fan of the team, as long as plenty of others that we accept in the Duck community as well. He was present at the Ohio State-Oregon game at Autzen last year. So clearly he was enough of a fan to attend the games and schedule his events around the Oregon Duck schedule. I also did not graduate from the University of Oregon, but growing up in Eugene, I always wanted to be a part of the team as a football player myself. And attend the school as well. So I accept those who are not alumni of the school, but have had a long time passion for the team. Let me be absolutely clear, though. I do not want a political discussion on my channel about Charlie Kirk and his politics or as a human being, in the sense of what you think of him as a human being. That will not be acceptable for me. And the idea is to acknowledge that a human life was lost. And upon his death, I want to go over two main things. One, I want to say rest in peace and condolences to his family, his wife, who is now a widow, and his children who are without fathers. It is, no matter what you might think about him, it is unfortunate that his daughter ran to him after the gunshot because she was scared of the gunshot, the noise that it created, and ran to him for comfort. And unfortunately, because of that gunshot, he was not a source of comfort. And his wife is now without a husband. I would like to just say rest in peace to Charlie Kirk and condolences to the family of his that remain alive. The second thing I'd like to just say is that if you are not religious, obviously I'm not going to force you to be. I have no reason to. But I would like to just say maybe find someone, whether it is someone in your life or something in your life that will provide you a equilibrium and a comfort in your mind, your soul, your body, your spirit. Whether that is a good friend of yours that brings you comfort, a family member that brings you comfort, a hobby, whatever it may be that brings you comfort. Lean into that just a little bit and just enjoy those things. Find the joy. I'm not talking about happiness. I'm talking about joy. Find the joy in those things that bring you that vitality in life. Because even as an atheist or an agnostic, whatever, non-religious, life can still have joy. And life, there are things in life that can still bring you meaning. I do not downplay or mock or just blow off the idea that people who are not religious or atheists can still find meaning in life. I fully concede, not concede like I'm against it, but just I fully understand the argument that I don't believe in God, I don't believe in an afterlife, but I find meaning in life. I totally understand. And I think that's great if you can find that meaning in life as an atheist or non-religious person, and totally go for that right now. I think right now is a great time to find that meaning and pursue that meaning. Absolutely go for it. I'm serious. Do it. For those of you who lean religious, are curious about religion or are absolutely devout religious people, I say this is an absolute time to just pray. Talk to God. Talk to the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, whatever higher power you believe in, Allah, whatever. Just pray. Meditate and pray. Pray for yourself betterment. Pray for your family members. Pray for your friends. And pray for the nation, the culture, and pray for the world. I think this is a great time to maybe recalibrate your spiritual life. Do it. Again, for myself personally, I was raised Protestant. I fell away a little bit from the Protestant world because I'm not a huge fan of the modern church culture that was sort of created from the Protestant world. That never really shook my faith in God Himself. And I will admit, the past couple years, I have been highly tempted and considering greatly joining the Catholic Church. I have 3 sets of grandparents. One of my grandfathers was an extremely devout Catholic. He attended Mass every day. I mean, Catholic as you can get out. He was so Catholic. He was probably the most Catholic person that wasn't the Pope. Okay. And I understand this is much to the chagrin of my mother. But I have considered the past couple of years of joining the Catholic Church. There is a beautiful cathedral that is about 3 to 5 blocks, a very short walking distance from my apartment in Little Italy, as it's known here in San Diego. I myself am not Italian. I respect Italian people for the most part. Just kidding. But I am a proud Irish descendant of Irish immigrants. But I am very much considering within the next couple of days heading down to that church and not only praying, but maybe considering becoming a Catholic. Again, I hope that doesn't deflect any of you away from this community and talking Duck football. I understand. But I think that is just my personal way of getting my mind, body, spirit, and soul in the right place. Because with recent events happening in the news, I think that it is a good thing to acknowledge that tomorrow is not promised, and doing whatever you can to make the life that you're living at the moment the best that it can possibly be, despite tomorrow not being promised. Again, if you're not religious, there are ways of doing that. So go for it. I'm not going to convince you one way or another. I'm doing it in my own way. You're going to do it in your own way. Here's the thing. No matter politics or religion, on this channel, we are all united, not divided. We are all united as Duck fans. And I think this is a great time to come together. This is the beauty of sports and being a part of a community in sports, is that no matter what divides us, we are united in one way or another. The Oregon Duck team represents the Eugene community and the Oregon community. The Oregon State program unites the Corvallis and Eugene communities. UW, Seattle, Washington, Washington State, Washington, Pullman, USC, LA, so on and so on. You get the extrapolation. So I just ask and pray that we all come together and move forward as personally better humans and personally as great sports fans, and that we all just find the things in life that gives us meaning. So again, I'm going to reiterate, you will be banned from this channel if you make it about politics. I have a strict no politics philosophy. I am all for free speech, but I am not about making this channel political, okay? You have so many options and opportunities to go be political. Go do that there. On this channel, we're going to talk Ducks. We're going to talk college football. I am just using this as a way for Duck fans everywhere to come together, as we have experienced death in our program. Spencer Webb, Kyrie Jackson being the most tragic and recent ones. Let's come together. Let's do that. Let's be encouraging, and let's come together and unite. So please, words of support, words of hate, or not support. I'm gonna draw a line on it. I just don't want political debate on this channel, because this is just not what it's about. This is a loss of human life. It's a loss of human life in an extremely violent way, and it's sad no matter what. So if you're not about that, feel free to unsubscribe to this channel and move forward. There are plenty of outlets for you to express how you feel. Go for it. But the two main takeaways I just want to say are those things. And the second one being the most important: hug your children. Tell your parents you're thankful for them. I don't care if they're terrible parents. Just do it. And I personally don't have children. I have a dog. I know that sounds ridiculous, but he is reliant on me being alive for now. And I feel like, unfortunately, if someone broke into my apartment and killed me, he would be in extreme danger because of that. And so I will still express my gratitude for my dog being alive and being a part of my life. I do want kids. I am very intent now on having kids. But the idea is hug your kids. Let them know you love them and you're going to be the best parent you possibly can be. Hug your wife. Tell her you're grateful for her and that you are glad she's in your life and you will do anything for her. For your husbands, for the ladies out there, I hope I have lady followers. I really do. I understand this might be a male-dominated field, but for your husbands out there, hug them, kiss them, let them know that you're grateful for him, and let him know that you will do anything for him. Your cousins, let them know you love them. Their family, your aunts, your uncles, all of them. And I think also aside of your family, let your friends know that you're grateful for them. A lot of these people, I have amazing friends. I have incredible friends. My best friends, all my friend circle, they're incredible people, good people, and resilient people. And just let them know you're grateful for having them in your life, because those often also, they're people that choose to be around you. They're ride or die people. Just let them know, hey man, I love you, dude. It's not gay. I know it's ridiculous to say that. It's not gay. It's not cringe. It's not ridiculous. Let your friends know, hey man, I love you like a brother. And I got your back. And if they don't got your back, well, maybe they're not your friends. But for the most part, they will be. And they will have your back. So let them know, too, that you're grateful for them. You're grateful that they're in your life. And you want to be in your life further and build those relationships. Because, again, tomorrow's not promised. And those friends will be there to carry your casket when you're dead. Even if you live long enough to be 90. They'll be there, too, at that time. I apologize for rambling and being ridiculous and sentimental. But that's just how I feel right now. And let's push forward and continue to have some fun and talk Ducks. And let's talk life, too, at the same time. And with all that being said, go Ducks, and let's get on to the show.
Race to their sideline. Touchdown, Oregon!
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all wages, welcome to the show. I apologize for it being another pre-record. It is Friday, and about an hour or two before I have to be at another football game today. I am trying to be more prompt with things. This week got a little out of hand again. I know this is a common theme on this show, but I'm going to get a handle on it. I'm going to get a handle on things that have sort of gotten out of handle for me in terms of time. So this will be sort of a full force episode. And because it's a little bit late to do a full Oklahoma State recap, it's sort of going to be the recap meets what we'll see with Northwestern this weekend, all in one. So let's start with the 69-3 bludgeoning of the Oklahoma State Cowboys in Autzen last Saturday. It was a lot. Again, a lot to take in. I don't think anyone, but I'll just say for this show's purpose, I did not expect that to be the score and the margin of victory. I understand that obviously Oklahoma State is in a bad way right now as far as a program, but it's kind of crazy that Montana State, an FCS school, put up a better fight. And look, this is sort of Schrodinger's game, Schrodinger's duck, if you will. That game, we're seeing more and more of more to more. And offense looked phenomenal in all facets. The downfield blocking clearly is just a part of the team and the receiving core. It wasn't just a outlier against an FCS team. That is part of the game plan, is to be receivers that are going to block like offensive linemen. And again, like I said with DeCorian Moore last week, they're bought in the sense of no block, no rock. And so they block like they want the rock every time. And it's really paying off in the running game, the short passing game. But definitely Noah Whittington's dominant performances and Jaden Lamar's breaking out is sort of showing that to be the case. I'm seeing a pattern of the same with my sort of prediction, not really a prediction, but just sort of a hopeful guess, if you will, about Tatum Tuioti. He's looking like he's starting to break out as well. The pattern is showing the last two games, so we'll see as the season continues along. And I think, again, because, one, he's sort of going to be a more every snap type of player now and not just in the platoons, if you will. But I think because of Mateo's dominant year last year, he's going to get a lot of attention from offensive linemen and pass protections and run schemes, which is opening up lanes for Tatum to sort of break out and take care of things like double teams on Mateo, so on and so forth. But again, the sort of media now that Oregon has sort of flown under the radar this year, and we were in such a perfect spot in that way. I don't want to lose that. Better to be under the radar than an underdog or overrated. You know, I think under the radar was a perfect spot, and now obviously because of the two games we had against our competition, people are like, the Ducks are the best team in the country. The Ducks are the best team in the country. I only want that to be known in January, whether we're the best team in the country or not at this point. That's my approach. It's always been my approach. So it's scary that we're starting to get more media attention. I know it comes with the territory, but it's still scary. So Schrodinger's duck is what I'm saying at this point too, with all the attention we're getting in the media, is sort of the question from the Oklahoma State game is more, how good is the Oregon Duck team this year versus how bad is Oklahoma State's team this year, or both. We just don't know yet because, again, it's just hard to tell with the level of pushback the team has really gotten. And you were sort of hoping or expecting more pushback from Oklahoma State, and we got less from Montana State. So the big question is, how good is Oregon and how bad was Oklahoma State? And how did that sort of intersect with each other last week? And how will things look moving forward? I sort of maybe tend to lean on both. Again, though, you just can't tell, and it's going to be hard to tell also against Northwestern. Generally, I mean, again, any given Saturday, and it's an early kickoff for the West Coasters. It's big noon in the Midwest, but it's a 9 a.m. kickoff to everyone else. So getting up early enough after tonight at my gigs, it's going to be tough to wake up in time to watch those games. But honestly, that's a better problem to have for me than it was for me last year to try to stay up past 6 p.m. to go to work the next day, and every single game was like a 7:30 kickoff. So that's not the worst problem to have for me. I can wake up. I can force myself to wake up even though I feel like crap, and at least it's a Saturday, so you can nap, especially when Oregon finishes playing. I still like to look at other games, obviously, but I don't have as much stake in it, so if I fall asleep, that's fine. But So the question: how good is Oregon? How bad was Oklahoma State? Obviously, I think it's both. I think for sure, though, we saw a lot more revealed about Oklahoma State's position as a program than we have Oregon. That's definitely for certain. We'll find out as the weeks go by. Preston Stone at Northwestern seems to be a great quarterback. I mean, nothing wrong with him, it seems. So again, I'm hoping to see a little bit more testing of the secondary because again, we saw amazing things and great things. They did have a blown coverage that sort of gave up an explosive play off a scramble drill. Flores was flushed out of the pocket. The D line or linebackers couldn't quite get to him, and he threw to a wide open guy. And you saw though from the snap there was a for sure breakdown in the coverage and communication with that. But overall, they barely let anything get past them. You know, they were batting down passes, pick sixes. That was nice to see finally. It feels like it's been a while since Oregon was a defense that created turnovers. 2 pick sixes in a row. I don't think I've ever seen that as in my 21 years as a football fan and a football player. That's just how dominant it was. And you almost sort of started to feel bad for Flores, the Oklahoma State quarterback, because it's just like he was put in such a bad position as a player, and he did play his heart out. He didn't make any excuses, and he tried and just couldn't make anything happen. And it just seemed like the Oregon secondary was pissed if they let a pass get called. And I want to say really quick, the past couple weeks for sure, I mentioned all these players and players' names, and a really big one that I kept forgetting to mention, I even made a note of him after the Montana State game, is Dalen Austin. He's been playing really high-level football and has been playing great and doing well. Everything that we sort of expect from him when he stepped foot in Eugene. And unfortunately, he's had some legal troubles that has kept him from really playing. And it's nice to see that it seems like those legal troubles are starting to go away and he can finally get back on the field. For those of you who don't know what's been going on with Dalen, unfortunately, he got a first-hand taste of the Whitaker area, I believe, in Eugene. Eugene has got some issues like any city does, and specifically, though, has issues with homeless people and homeless people that are on drugs. According to court records and his witness story, there was a guy that was attacking his car, I believe, with a hammer, something though, and was attacking his car, and he made an escape to get out of a dangerous situation, running over the guy and killing him, and then fleeing the scene. But then he eventually returned to the scene, I think probably because it's like, I need to give eyewitness testimony, obviously, as a person involved in this incident. I gotta be there to help the police in their investigation. It seems, as far as I know, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I only sort of looked onto it and read an Oregonian article. Overall, though, it seems like he was just in a really crappy situation that he was not planning on being in, and he was thrown into it, and he reacted the best way he possibly could according to the situation. And unfortunately, that's just how those stupid situations work. So Dan Lanning seems pretty confident that things are going to work out for him, and I think that's why he felt like he could, start playing as Dalen has proven to be playing at a high level. Again, that's the thing. If he wasn't playing well, he wouldn't get playing time. It had nothing to do with the legality of things. But he's been playing very well. I've been very happy with very excited and happy with what I've seen with Dalen Austin. He's played incredible. Jaden Kennedy is another sort of honorable mention. I believe he's an Ole Miss transfer. Again, a big win in the transfer portal column. I mean, we didn't get very many as many transfers as previous years because obviously Landing's roster is starting to be more solidified and built. But what a great gap to fill with Kennedy, and he's been playing very well as well. Thieneman had a great game as well. I can't believe how much ground that dude covers. It's honestly crazy. I mean, because usually you have a safety that's a run stopper or a coverage guy, and he's both. Like, I saw him stop a screen behind the line of scrimmage. He stopped a run play before it got too far. And then Kingston Lopa was about to lose out on a coverage play. I mean, he was there, he was in position, but the guy definitely had a better chance than Lopa to catch the ball, the receiver. And Thieneman just comes out of nowhere, and gets his hands on the ball and almost intercepts it, but ultimately breaking the pass up. And it's just like, geez, man. He really was a great get, and I'm sure Purdue fans are just punching a wall right now, having lost him on their squad. Just a great player, and coming into his own on this Ducks team. He's starting to, it's like that diesel engine. He's starting up, and he got some momentum. It's starting to happen for him. So that was great to see. Again, by the time Penn State comes around, I don't know why Oregon has sort of struggled the past few years under Tosh Lupoi with running schemes or misdirection. They played a great run game against Oklahoma State. They also did relatively well against Montana State, so I'm seeing improvement, but there are still moments I feel like the linebackers look a little lost on run plays. The D linemen and DN sort of get beat in terms of getting out of position that creates holes. Again, though, they didn't really give up like super explosive plays on the run game, but they do sort of have stretches where they give up 3-4 yards every time, and that's all the offense needs in the run game. All they need is about 3 to 4 yards a carry. They don't need much else. So I would like to see way more stoutness on the run game as time moves forward, at least where you can trust that against Penn State you can make those stops, because last year against Penn State gave up a lot of yardage. The two games really were Boise State with Ashton Gianti, which containing him is a winning strategy. You're going to give up something to Ashton. Last year, you just got to make sure you give up as least as possible with him. So that's understandable. But then Penn State, I believe, rushed for like 200 yards in the Big Ten championship. That's really what kept him in that game, to be honest. So that's something that really I think needs to get cleaned up most of all. Given the sort of, again, necessary coverage breakdowns you're going to accept, you'd rather flip that coin with the secondary right now, because aside from any sort of explosive play or 20-yard coverage breakdown, whatever, they've been playing at a very high level. And so I would still sort of put up that secondary against Drew Aller over the run defense against, I think it's Allen and Singleton, I believe. I can't remember the exact names of the Penn State running backs. Again, I'm not really a major roster guy as far as college football as a whole. I know Oregon's roster much better, but yeah. So those are sort of the key takeaways from Oklahoma State and moving forward to Northwestern. Preston Stone, I'm hoping, will be more of a test for Oregon, and they've passed that test. I know the the coach sort of kissed Oregon's ass because I don't think he wanted to get the beat down that Gundy got. But seems like a pretty decent enough coach. He'll probably have his guys coached up, ready to go. By the way, I will say with Northwestern Stadium, I know it's under construction, so it's kind of small right now. But the location off of Lake Michigan, that looks gorgeous. I sort of wish I had a chance to make it over there, even if the game isn't or wasn't or won't be that competitive. That view looks spectacular. Eat a funnel cake and a burger or something. That's their menu items. And just chill by the lake. That just looks beautiful. I'm very jealous of all the Duck fans that are going to make their way to Northwestern, and kudos to Northwestern. You guys got a beautiful venue, so I'm excited to see how it looks after all the remodeling and construction is done. So, Northwestern though, again, it's just a matter of stopping the run and making sure that young secondary continues to develop, make plays, not give up big plays, and they should be fine. Because even though the Ducks as a program have destroyed teams so far, the quarterback play is getting progressively better. You got Preston Stone tomorrow. You got Malik Murphy at Oregon State the next week. The 27th is the date of the Civil War game. Malik Murphy is no slouch for sure. They played terrible against Fresno State, but it wasn't Malik Murphy and the offense that played terrible. They put up numbers. I believe it was like 600 yards. So it's like that special teams play really messed them up. And luckily the Ducks have had great special teams play this year. Aside from the punter, he really needs to get more reps in. Just kidding, but that's just a lame joke everyone's been telling. But McClellan blocking punts, Gary Bryant Jr. returning punts. Looks like they're also trying to sort of slowly put punt returns onto Corian Moore's plate, so that should be really fun to watch. So if Dante Moore continues to play efficient football like he's been doing, playing incredible decisions, making incredible decisions, and getting the ball to his playmakers, being the ultimate point guard on the football team, they should have no problems. And if Whittington obviously continues to build on what he's doing, it's kind of crazy that, his stats should probably be way more crazy, but he puts up such crazy numbers, he has to get taken out early. And so you look at the box score and see, only 91 yards. I mean, that's a good game, but, that's not that great or whatever. But he got those on like 4 carries. Two long runs, one of them a long touchdown, and someone else gets put in just because it's like, again, like the title of last week's episode, an embarrassment of riches. That's just what it really is in terms of playmaking. And, so I think the offense so far has proven who they have and what they can do. Now it's just time to build on that and make sure you don't have off games. There's people on the defensive roster, I think, that we could see more from, but we're seeing more and more from them as time goes on. So that is also good news. There obviously are some things to clean up. There are some things that are amazing to see. I loved seeing Mixon, a linebacker, get the first pick six, and then Peyton Woodyard, a safety, get the other one. But it's nice seeing that kind of playmaking from linebackers. So great stuff on the defense. I would just obviously like to. I'm not going to be. It's not a harshness against the defense. But again, defense wins championships. I know offensive highlights are fun and flashy and entertaining, but it's always the defense. So I would I would trade a 69-point win or 66-point win over Oklahoma State for a 35-point win over Oklahoma State because of the defense. So I'm not being necessarily critical of the defense. I will be if they, obviously earn that criticism. And I'm not being unfair to the defense, but I'm just saying with defense in particular, I'm like the Kylo Ren, more. So they played fantastic in a lot of ways. I would say like 98% fantastic, but more. Let's make it 100. And if you hit 100, make it 110. Like, you want that defense to be dominant no matter who you play. You can't have it be like you dominate every poor team, but the two big games you play, you give stuff up. And granted, again, probably going to happen against those teams as it stands right now because the team is so new and young. I think Oregon has a fantastic chance against Penn State. I'm still probably going to lean towards chalking that up as a loss for now. But Oregon has a great chance of beating Penn State by the way that they've played so far. They just need to keep that same intensity, drive, hunger, and playmaking up against a team like Penn State. So, again, it's not I'm not trying to be unfair or overly critical of them, but I want a defense that leaves no doubt. And what I mean by leave no doubt, this was the phrase me and my dad threw around a lot when the Seattle Seahawks won their first Super Bowl, 43-8 against the Broncos. Leave no doubt. Every time you step on the field is also a thing my coach just told me when I played. Get on that field when you play, especially when you win, leave no doubt. Even if it's not a blowout win, leave no doubt. Don't allow something like a ref call, a blown call like that, a coaching mistake, a time management mistake, a player mistake, anything like that to throw a wrench in your win or even your loss. Go out there, play clean football and or whatever sport it is, and play to win, not to lose, and leave no doubt. So that's what I want to see from the defense. I want to be like, okay, these guys are really good, and if we go in the playoffs, they're not gonna choke, or we make it run through the playoffs and national championship. There's a chance at the national championship with this defense. That's what I want to see. And on defense over offense, unfortunately for the defensive players, it's just never going to be enough. The offense, it's like, we could score 20 points. That's enough to win games if your defense is not accepting anything being enough. So that's just my approach to how I view it. It's hard. It's hard to argue with the results on the field so far, though. They've played very well. They're getting turnovers in the air. They're getting fumbles when they can, and they're tackling well. I very much enjoying seeing a secondary that hits. They're not just hugging and pulling the person down or ankle diving. These guys are linebackers in safeties' bodies. And by that I mean lean, athletic, same archetype, bodily archetype of a receiver, not necessarily stout like a linebacker generally is. And they lay the wood, which is fun to see. And I like seeing that because that helps. That'll help in coverage. That'll help in the passing and run game because usually offenses will attack secondaries because it's like, these guys are marshmallows. They're not going to hit. Let's attack them. We can break tackles off these, so on and so forth. And we don't have to worry about getting around the front seven, who are the big boys and the hitters. But now it's like, I'm gonna hesitate to throw that drag route right in the middle because I know Thienemann's coming down the pike. Kingston Lopa's coming. Woodyard, Flowers, Iffy, Finney's been he's a guy that wants to hit. So it makes you just think twice before throwing, during the throw, while catching, or even running when you get to the third level. Like I might get punished for this. So I got to keep my head on a swivel type of thing. So I love seeing that, and I love the fact that the talent on these guys are such that they're run stoppers in the sense that they hit, but they're also fast that they can cover. Because again, you sort of have those trade-offs. In the old days, you got a hitter that isn't fast enough to cover, and you got a cover guy that's not a hitter, and you work with that, but it just doesn't always match up sometimes in that way, depending on the squad. So those are things that I'm looking forward to seeing against Northwestern, just sort of seeing, again, more and more from what we've seen already, because there is still stuff to see, that we need to sort of make these proclamations that I think a lot of media members are too jumpy, too quick on the trigger, and too quick to jump on, Oregon's the best team in the country. And it's nice to hear or whatever and all that kind of thing. But again, I think this year especially, under the radar is the perfect place for us to be. And the problem right now for us too is strength of schedule. And here's the thing. We schedule, or, teams schedule these games years ahead of time. So we had no idea that Oklahoma State was going to be a weak opponent. And probably when that game was originally scheduled, they weren't a weak opponent. So that's just the way the cookie sort of crumbled this year. And by the time we got to see them on the field and playing them. But it does sort of make the argument harder for Oregon to be the best team in the country already, because you had teams like Ohio State that played Texas and beat them and beat Texas. Texas was number 1 rated in the country. Arguably, they were probably overrated. I understand those arguments and probably agree and lean that way. Ohio State didn't play impeccable against Texas either. They won 14-7, and Texas was on the verge of coming back to a degree, probably not, but enough to put a scare in the team. But on schedule, when you look at strength of schedule so far, that obviously looks good in Ohio State's argument to be the best team in the country right now. They beat the best team in the country when they were ranked number 3 at home in a defensive battle. So I think right now the argument is hard for Oregon to say we're the best team in the country. And again, I would much rather have that argument in January when the trophy is hoisted to the actual best team in the country, or the best team in the country that got in a heater in the playoffs, because that's all it takes. Heater in the playoffs. That's all you need. You just get in the playoff, make sure you're on a hot streak and got the momentum rolling healthy during that time. You don't need to be 27-0 going into the playoffs. So that is all I really have on that. For the rest of the show, though, I am very excited to finally have gotten in touch and in connection with my dad, who is the first guest on this show, and that will be coming up in the next segment. So stick around for that. We recorded this interview late at night, and he was an impeccable, phenomenal first guest. We had a great discussion about the NIL conference realignment and the future sort of college football overall as a business and a sport. Just sort of an hour-long conversation about everything involving the sports world, college football, college sports, conference realignment, and the NIL. He has a great perspective, a great nuanced opinion about it. I was glad we could put this interview together and share this discussion with you today. So we are going to look forward to tomorrow for the Ducks game against Northwestern. And hopefully I will be back in time to do a more prompt and topical and relevant recap of the game a little sooner in the week than at the last second, like this time around. I'm going to try to be a little bit more on the ball moving forward, but I'm still going to make this show as much as possible because if something gets in the way and I miss a week, that's worse to me than being late in the week. So, and I'm going to also, moving forward, try to go live more often. I think that's more fun to be live because you got great fans like Stevie Mack being able to chat and attach himself to the conversation. And I hope you guys do too by liking and subscribing and joining the chats, commenting down below, doing all that stuff, being a part of the community and discussion of Duck football and college football as a whole. So yeah, let's get to the discussion with my dad, and you'll see that these glasses are genetic. And Stevie Mack, speaking of you, look at that, debuting the new glasses. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right in, and I'll see you guys next week, and thanks for watching. Who I have with me right now is the man of the hour, the elder statesman of the family, the great from the Lone Star State, deep in the heart of Texas, my dad, Michael. How are you today?
I'm awesome, buddy. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. So today, I'm happy you're the first guest
All
for
right.
multiple reasons. One of that is being that you sort of have an inside sort of scoop, I guess, on colleges and what athletic revenue means to colleges in general. Just a little bit of background. You were a few years in working at Oregon State the years 2006 and 2007 when they won the back-to-back national championships in baseball.
hmm
What were you doing during those years at that time? Like, what was your position there?
So during that year, I was in the Division of Business Affairs, which is basically the controller's office. So my job was to, you know, make sure all the stuff was going right, and I also worked with the athletics department from the central office standpoint, and working with the assistant athletic.
Uh-oh. I think you froze up a little bit.
Did I?
Yeah. Oh, you're back. Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Did we catch all that?
uh, basically, but maybe the last part, just repeat that real quick.
Okay, yeah. So I was on the in the division of business affairs. So and in the controller, basically the controller's office there, and I was the liaison between that office and athletics department with the assistant director of finance at the assistant athletic director for finance and athletics department at Oregon State.
Cool. Yeah. So, while during your time there, you were, or like the Beavers had won the national championship twice in a row for baseball. What is
Mhm.
usually the money sort from the athletics kind of spreads around to the school? Is that correct? What did that mean though for that for your department?
Well, for my department, it didn't mean much. We just managed the money that, watched overview the money that was coming in and going out. But, the way it worked back then, you got a cut of the revenue from like the World Series and all those kind of things, the TV revenue. They used to give you a cut of that as you became the champion. So we would see that money come into the revenue for the athletic department. So they would be able to use that. It covered all the expenses for the trips, right, and everything else, and maybe add a little left over.
Hmm.
But the biggest, so baseball brought, the athletic part brought more notoriety to Oregon State, not necessarily that much more money function.
Right. Okay. Um, But granted, with this sort of background here, you sort of have an idea of how kind of the system works, obviously, how it doesn't work. And, most people, when they look at things like NIL and paying the players, most people would assume that, um, you know, someone maybe in your position would be like, no, just give the money to the school. They don't deserve it. It's all about academics, blah, blah, blah. But definitely part of the reason why I wanted you on this specific sort of subject was not only were you kind of behind the scenes at least seeing where the money is going and not going from athletic successes, but I think you have sort of the most interesting, nuanced opinion about things like NIL. So let's just start kind of from the beginning of
Sure.
your viewpoint on NIL, and what that means, not only for the school but for the players and the athletics department.
All right. Well, so, from the NIL standpoint, and there's been a recent change now too with the revenue share piece coming along. So I've had to kind of been looking at that a little bit, and not from it's coming up because the revenue share is an important piece across the campus at this point, depending on where you're at.
Mm.
So, from my perspective, and stuff, the old days, the students used to get a free ride, get free food, and maybe a little job on campus to give them a little extra spending money. And they made a lot of money for the campus, technically. I mean, for the athletics department. And what people need to realize is that the athletics department is supposed to cover all of their own stuff. Okay, so all the revenue that comes in should be covering all their expenses, all the stadium costs, and all of those things that they need to operate. While it's part of the university, it is like a business operation. So they call them auxiliaries on the campus. But all those kind of operations are like business functions. Housing and dining is an example of the same thing, where they got to make the money then cover their expenses by what they charge students for the food. So same thing with athletics, they got to make their money and cover their expenses by charging ticket prices and cutting TV deals and all of those kind of things to cover the travel and all that stuff. So from a functional standpoint, those entities on a college university campus are a business operation. Now, what happens when they don't make any money and when they lose the money? That's where it gets kind of squirrely, and that's where the university actually has to either one, have huge donors to fill the gaps, or it has to come out of the university's normal budget to cover those deficits. So from a financing functionality, that's what happens. So where does that come from? That comes from tuition. It comes from tuition revenue. That comes from student. Some universities have student fees that cover the students' ticket costs, right? So some of that is part of it. But anything else, the universities have to pick up the tab. So that's kind of a function of the financing and the way the budgetary and other kinds of things happen on the campus. So now we have NIL. So NIL is where the students can sell their name, image, and likeness, right? And do some of that. And so that was okay, per se. Students still were getting their scholarships. I mean, also just a way for the students to make money. And in my opinion, they should be able to make money off of their talent. They're providing talent. They're giving money, getting money. The university is bringing the revenue in. Students aren't getting any cut of that, but they should get the name recognition. So they should get a cut off of what they can get from the names and the endorsements that they might get out of that. So that's what NIL was designed to do, is to give them that, right?
Yeah.
Students are putting their bodies on the line in football, and they blow a knee out. They don't got any money, but if they have their name and their likeness, at least they've made some money to do something, and and that way they can keep moving forward. So, so that's kind of my nuance, I guess, understanding is I think NIL was a good thing for the students to make lots of money. There probably should have been, we need to have some boundaries around that so that they are, you know, we got to remember these are young kids, college students that, don't know always how to manage their money either. So, I think they did some of those things that were pretty good in trying to help them manage that as well. So,
Yeah, I can only imagine when I was 17, 18 years old what I would where my mind would be being thrown that much money to play D1 ball. Yeah,
mhm.
I largely agree with you because like you said, a lot of these kids, remember the old commercials during the football games was like, 98% of your favorite football player or whatever doesn't go pro. They go on to do something else, dentist,
That's right.
whatever, blah, blah, blah. And obviously that was the benefit of getting a full ride scholarship if you got one. Um, is that you are a dentist now with no school debt. But again, these colleges and universities, and especially the NCAA, are making billions of dollars off these guys playing, and some of these guys that could go pro, and that might be their only sort of way forward post college. They blow out a knee, their shoulder goes out, they break an arm, they get paralyzed, something like that, and now they have nothing to show for it. And so it's not like the NFL either, where, nowadays at least, maybe not so much in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but now, the NFLPA is there, the Players Association is there to
Right.
sort of maybe help with medical things if there's some sort of debilitating injury where they can't work or anything like that. Those college kids don't really have that, but they're putting up the same amount of risk as the
Yeah.
pros are. So there should be some sort of monetary sort of collateral, if you will, that would shield them from, you know, I guess having their lives ruined, I guess, for lack of a better phrasing.
Yeah.
And of course, the NIL sort of came about too because, you had, well, who was it? Troy Smith, some Ohio State quarterback that like signed a jersey or something, and
Right.
that fan sold it on eBay or something, and he gets suspended for a game. It's like, okay, that's kind of ridiculous. Um,
Definitely.
and yeah, you have those sort of things that were sort of like, all right, come on, and so I think that obviously that's a good thing that sort of comes out of it. Now, obviously, like you mentioned before too. And another thing of the NIL too is the video game. That was
Yeah.
probably the biggest driver of how fast that they implemented the NIL. Was like, come on, it's been 10 years. You guys discontinue this game. We want to play. We want a new video game. And so finally, EA Sports and the NCAA kind of caved, especially after some lawsuits. And we all finally got our video game back last year. Um, for better or for worse, depending on, a lot of the gamers, have, of course, very opinionated on it, but we got it.
Sure. Yeah.
And now it's not QB number 3, it's the player that you actually watch on
Hmm.
television. So those are kind of obviously the main drivers of the NIL and kind of the system that's put in place. Now, there's a double-edged sword here because now you have the teams like Alabama fans, Florida fans, Tennessee, or not, maybe not so much Tennessee, but kind of the blue blood, traditional, purist SEC sort of schools that are saying, "Oh, now it's ruined college football," and it's like, okay, what does that mean to you guys? Because you guys were doing co-eds and Camaros before everyone else, giving a little wink and
Hmm.
nod. We're not paying you, but we're not paying you,
Right.
and getting and hogging all the sort of talent. Um, and now there's a little bit more parity between the teams now because they don't have that advantage anymore. Everyone has that
Right.
advantage. But what are the downsides to for you, maybe at least as NIL currently stands?
Well, I think to me the downsides to the NIL at this point is that um, it is a free agency type of attitude, right? And that's what I think that's going to be still some of the things that are going to come out with the revenue share, but probably less with the revenue share side of it. Look, if you got name, image, and likeness, and you are a five-star recruit, but then now you're on a two-bit team, then you're going to move on, right? And so you've got to move on to a place where you're going to get the reps and the recognition that you need. Not so that you're going to have to go somewhere where the contract and the TV contracts are up and everything else to get you out there to generate the interest in your name and likeness. So I think one of the dangers of it is that we have and look, we all know that the portal's open all the time, right? They can go in the transfer portal and transfer around really easy. So from that perspective, for the player perspective, it gives them free agency, which is good and bad in some reality. From the organizational aspect, it's really hard to manage that. And it does create some financial obligations on the contracting side of the NIL. So there's a potential for some issues going on there. That's kind of so as far as the sport goes, I think we're going to see a lot less, a lot fewer dynasty type operations going on, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it's also going to be very hard for programs to be consistent over time, as well as the players kind of move in and out. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I think they still haven't finished off some of the rules and regs around it, and so, but so far it hasn't gotten too bad. But we'll see how the revenue share side comes along with that.
Yeah, I think right now it is sort of a double-edged sword because you have to figure out the issues, and sometimes the only way to do that is for those issues to present themselves. As a couple examples, last year there was a quarterback for Tennessee. His name was Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah,
And he transferred to UCLA this year. And actually, the quarterback that was at UCLA transferred to Tennessee. So it was sort of like a backdoor trade, if you will.
sure.
UCLA is 0-2 right now and not playing very well. Tennessee is looking to be in playoff contention for the second year in a row. Um, Montana State, who Oregon played in the first game of the season, um, the quarterback used to be the quarterback for Stanford, and he transferred to Montana State. And then, of course, last week Oregon played Oklahoma State and shellacked them 69-3. It was a bloodbath.
Oh man,
And
yeah,
and Mike Gundy, the coach of Oklahoma State, made some comments before the game about basically that we can't compete with Oregon because they have all this money and resources, a la Phil Knight, and we can't really compete. This last year they went like 2-3-9.
yeah,
Obviously, this year they're not much better and possibly worse. And then a couple years before that, they were one of the more higher ranked teams. So you're seeing a distinct sort of drop in their program, and everyone's looking at Mike Gundy um, being let go. So you're seeing kind of a double-edged sword
yeah,
of guys who transfer a lot. There's sort of a drop off now in sort of their star power, if you will, because it's like, okay, this guy's transferring too much. He's not transferring into great positions. And then now you have like FCS schools that are taking like FBS talent and bringing them down. So it's like they're kind of getting better. Um, and and then you have guys that a lot of the complaints about Gundy and after the beatdown, Oregon coach Dan Lanning said about one of the players, Bryce Betcher. He came out of South Eugene. He walked onto the baseball team and the football team. Now he is a potential All-American in football. He's already been drafted by the Astros in baseball. He's now like a big time middle linebacker, captain of the football team type player. And landing sort of swipe at Gundy was like he showed up for a t-shirt and a backpack.
Yeah,
And so it's not necessarily all about money. It's kind of how you plan ahead in the age of the NIL. And also everyone's like, well, Gundy, you don't necessarily have an excuse because Oklahoma State had T. Boone Pickens
sure.
until he died in 2019. And obviously he died before the NIL era. But again, there's sort of a way to plan ahead on that. The going theory was Gundy was making those comments though because he's been unhappy with sort of um, his NIL or just revenue, the amount of money coming into the program, and he was sort of trying to say like, look, this is what we need. Look at Oregon and look at us. We need more money. Let's start making this happen. So um, I guess
Well,
what? Yeah.
yeah. So one of the things we haven't kind of hit on too is we looked at the universities as athletics and tuition based and functional state funding balance. But what we haven't talked about is endowments.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
this is where the difference comes in big time. So Phil Knight can put a ton of money into endowments, and that money is less restricted because he can say, use it for what you want, and by legal means and by the legalities of the endowment arena, Oregon can say, okay, and we'll use it for everybody we want. So we can make any decision around that money we want. Sometimes endowments come in and says you need to build a building with that.
Hmm.
That's what has to happen with that money. This has to go to scholarshiping students with, blue eyes, red hair, and, you know, duck lips,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what that money has to be used in. And so this is where the disparity is going to show up some more going forward. That's where the disparity on the NIL side came in because you can backfill NIL with that kind of money.
Yeah.
So you can come in and say, okay, we're going to give you an NIL contract here and we're going to guarantee you're going to make $1 million off of that NIL while you're here. Well, if they want to take off and it's not happening, then you're contracted with that. You either got to pay that contract or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other side of some of this that has been going on. So that's one of the things that they're trying to flesh out, right? So, um, and so as that, so we have to address the donor side of all of this.
Yeah.
And so Phil Knight's got a ton of money. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't just give it to athletics, right? He's done some big things,
He
and
builds the school as a whole for sure. Yeah.
he did that. But he's also gave 500 million, what's a match of 500 million, I think it was, to OHSU in Oregon
Hmm.
for cancer research. So
Yeah.
again, there's some balancing points in here that we want to make clear. So it should always be about the student getting their degree, finishing their education, right? That's their students first functionally. That's
Yeah.
why they say student athlete. Even grad students that aren't athletes, they can work 20 hours a week. Students can work 20 hours a week by laws and on campus, but they're students first. I mean, that's the campus idea. Um, so again, that that's a big piece of this is why Gundy's complaining is because Oregon has a good steady income off of the endowment side of that, where their endowments are not being used to support that, right? So
Yeah.
there is going to be some of this, but that's why the Alabamas, that's why the Texas, that's why all of those big programs can keep pouring money into athletics because they got big money in those endowments that they can use for that. So that's where the real disparity is going to start showing up eventually. Um, and but the caps on the revenue sharing side has some extra stuff in there. So we can talk about that in a little minute. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that
Yeah. No. For sure. I mean, it's great you mentioned endowments too, because if we're following the logic of more money equals more sort of athletic success or program success, Harvard would be better than Alabama and Ohio State combined because they have $40 billion in endowments. They're the richest
Mhm.
university in the country, and so it's like obviously it goes to what you choose for that money to go to because
Right.
Harvard's not. they're
Yeah.
they're 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 not quite up there on that scale. Yeah, so I definitely think it really comes down to choice and what you choose to invest in, and that's kind of how it was for Oregon
Sure.
in the beginning anyway. Because you know I've gone over this plenty of times, but Nike wasn't really a thing until like the mid '90s when
Yeah.
Michael Jordan put on those shoes in the NBA.
Yep.
So it wasn't really until then that Phil Knight even had money to give to Oregon in the first place. And then it wasn't until the 1994 Rose Bowl team that he was like, oh, there's something here that I can maybe help build on. And so it wasn't until like what 96, 97, even a year or two after that, that any of that investing was really taking off. So it really does come down to what you choose that money from those endowments too, and just from the boosters in general, what that even goes to. Because also on the flip side, in the '80s, they were essentially holding bake sales to keep Autzon's lights on.
Sure.
So it really comes down to that choice, and once that choice was made, it was kind of all guns blazing on that.
Yeah,
Um,
you got to be able. So again, so let's go back to the fact that the athletic side is a business operation, right? So they got to bring revenue in to pay the bills. They got to be able to pay those coaches that $5 million a year, right?
yeah,
And if he sucks, they got to cash him out. So
yeah,
that's part of that. So you have to have that donor base to smooth those things out over time, but also to make the research stadiums at Oregon State and to make the Autzen stadiums and all the Mahashovskis and
hmm
all of those things. You've got that. That's where it brings notoriety. It brings the it's all part of the marketing. It's all tied into marketing, but also you got to have the facilities. You got to have all these things so kids can want to come. It's like any other business. I mean,
yeah,
really, you got to advertise your product
and
and you
compete.
got to have a good product and you have to compete with that and you have to have a good product that people want to buy and that people want to see or whatever. So it's an entertainment dollar. That's why when I moved to Texas and I was at University of Texas Arlington, they don't have football.
Yeah.
And it's because why? Well, because right there in Arlington, you've got Dallas Cowboys, you got the Texas Rangers,
hmm
and not too far away, you got TCU football, and you've got all of this competition in there. Nobody wants to go to some football stadium at a university that, the high school stadiums around the area are better. So,
I know. It's crazy.
it's like, so you've got to be strategic. And so this is the other side of this being about being strategic as you move forward. But that is a university strategy. It's not just an athletic department strategy.
Yeah.
That's part of it, but it has to be combined with the total university strategy because the university needs to build more buildings for science. For we're trying to build a building at our university for my college that I'm working for. We need a building, right?
Yep.
So our current building is not functional all the way. It's got things, but as we move forward strategically, we need more space to do more things, to teach more students, to do more research and those kind of things. So, um, and we can talk about research and all that other stuff on something else, but that's a
Right.
whole different ball game, right?
Yeah.
So that's it's about balancing all these competing things and trying to help. I know at my school and at our university, we're really concerned because it's a private, so we have to really be tuition conscious. We don't want them. We're trying how not to saddle our students with a lot of debt. How can we? So we're more focused on maybe building our endowment on the scholarship side. Our athletic facilities are pretty good, are really actually excellent. So now we build on the scholarship side to get more students, more general population students, more money too. So the focus is always on the athletic side of this, but we need to find ways to help the general students
Mm.
populations in all of our universities be able to afford going to school
Yeah.
and not be saddled with this debt. And it can be done.
Yeah. And like you said before, or did you say before too that oftentimes the pay for some of these school or some of these players, I should say, um, comes from tuition money?
Well, it not so well within the red with the before revenue share
Hmm.
is coming on, and before that, you would have students doing jobs around campus, which is operational money from student tuition. But
Mm.
we have tons of other students working, right? I mean, my office, we have 3 students that do jobs for us. We have students all through our colleges, all through our university doing, you know, jobs for, filing, keeping at the desk and doing some jobs to, for once, some of it's experiential learning for kids and everything else, but some it's just to help them pay their, put food and to take care of their expenses. And so that's tuition operational money that we have from the tuition revenue to do our operations as well to help teach students. So it's, that's the goal of it. So the, the student athletes prior to the NIL and prior to this revenue share, that would be the functionality of how they're getting paid and supported.
Mm.
Now, tuition dollars sometimes have to go into the athletic department as a whole because they've had a hole, right? Or
Yeah.
they've gone into debt on something, or they had something major come up and they didn't have the reserves. Most of us try to make sure that they're putting stuff in the reserves for equipment and everything else. So I know at Oregon State we required them to take a percentage of the revenue and set it into the reserves for these areas. That's probably pretty systematic over. It's just good practice, best practice, so that you have those reserves. But you know, life can happen. So big time stuff. So um, the most universities have moved away from the student tuitional dollars support to make sure that they are operating in that business mode, making sure. That's why you see coaches getting fired. That's why you see a wholesale changes and that stuff, because they've got to make sure that the product is good because the revenue has to come in. So
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, if you have a bad program that doesn't invest maybe in the program, or um, they lose a lot of money because of it, and then obviously because you can't pull in the talent with not as much money, um, that's bad for everybody. And so it really does kind of make a difference if you're making sure your revenue makers are actually making revenue on that, because it's a ripple effect.
well, if you suck, you're not on ESPN making money off the TV rev, and
Hmm.
no donors want to give you money.
Right.
Bottom line,
Yeah.
right?
What, someone says, "Hey, donate to this." Why should I? If you guys, suck, I'm not going to get anything
Yeah,
out of it. I might as well just light that
yeah,
money on fire.
yeah. They either want to put their name on it, something, or they want the recognition. So that's the donor mentality.
Yeah. And I think too, the balancing act with all of this is Jim Ross, legendary commentator and talent relations for WWE for a long time and now at AEW. He says most wrestlers leave a company over two things: cash or creative.
Mm-hmm.
And in creative, in the football term, is probably playing time.
Yep.
So if we have Oregon starting quarterback Dante Moore, um, actually originally, very originally, um, uh, committed to Oregon. and then he ended up transferring to UCLA. Struggled at UCLA. A lot of it had to do with um, the fact that Chip Kelly, he was the coach at the time, but he obviously always has one foot out the door. I don't really think
Yeah,
he was never really that involved after Oregon in really any team that he's ever really been with. And even in Oregon, he could really give a crap about recruiting. He just wanted guys that would play his game and didn't really
sure.
think about recruiting. And so he struggled at UCLA and actually transferred back to Oregon, sat behind Dylan Gabriel last year for a year to kind of learn and develop a little bit better instead of just kind of being thrown to the wolves. And
Hmm.
now he's starting this year for Oregon and playing very well. And overall, it probably has helped his draft stock as time goes by, depending, obviously, we're only going into week 3. So it really still has a lot yet to be learned about him, especially in high pressure situations and things like that. But he's
Sure.
got at least 1 year and potentially 2 more to go to really up his draft stock, where he might have been considered a bust if he stayed at UCLA and kind of kept pushing it. But he kind of had the maturity to realize, maybe the quality of my playing time isn't as great. I'm going to take that creative that creative or playing time hit for a year to maybe build up my not only my NIL but my playing time to be much better. So I don't think it's overall. I don't think it's purely just money. That I know a lot of people think, um, oh, just chase the bag. Go get the money, follow wherever the most money is, blah blah blah. But I think there's a lot going on in players' heads that is more than just money, which I think Oregon probably could spend a lot more on players. But in fact, they might be in top 5, but they're in top 5. They're not the top. They're
Yeah.
not spending, they're not just throwing money at players. They're trying to get them to sort of come in and buy into the culture of the program over just chasing the bag. So I think there's sort of a natural balancing act that's happening in that. But I still think there might have to be some more regulations in the sort of NIL world of like,
Yeah.
there's got to be some sort of clauses in contracts where it's like, you can't just up and leave and I don't know, play for I don't know, because that again, it's tough because you have guys that in the NFL that get traded and they can play the next week. But a lot of people in the college world, because they sort of see it now as NFL 2.0, but they still kind of see it as an abuse of the system.
Well, one of the things that they got rid of was the 1 year sit, right?
Yes.
So you can go into the transfer portal and play next time, right? And so, here's the scenario, right? Some kid comes in, you work hard to get this kid into your program so he starts the fall year, and then you have him, so you've got what, maybe 3 months before that you've been working with him, a little longer probably, but a new kid coming in, right? And so then he comes in and he's here for 6 months during during the football season, enters the portal and is gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you spent all that effort on this kid for just 6 months and got nothing.
Yeah.
And so that's the real problematic area that this is causing, is that this is when those kids are coming in and chasing the bag, right?
Yeah.
And I think, most kids are not doing that, but you're getting a lot of the high profile kids are all doing that and going all around. And it doesn't help for program stability either.
No.
And so, I mean, I hire people, right? I'm looking for someone to hire right now. And I need to look at them from the perspective that if I'm going to invest all this money in hiring them and all this effort into hiring this person, I need them to stick around for a certain level of time. I don't
Yeah.
expect them to stay with me forever, because then I'm a bad manager if I don't help that person progress
Yeah.
and move on to the next best thing. So that makes me a bad manager if I don't do that. So, but I need to get, you know, 3 to 5 years out of that person for sure.
Yeah.
So again, you're teaching kids the wrong lesson here is to, chase immediate gratification when, you got to be in it for the long haul as well, right? And so you've got to kind of pace into that. And so there's more than just the money lessons here. There's the life lessons that kids need to learn. That life doesn't come at not everything drops in your lap right away. That building character and everything else. You hear some coaches talk about this, and most of them are really about that. But it's important, and we don't want to lose that piece of it either.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, I can't tell you, all the life lessons that I still apply today in my time in just from my time in organized sports. Never had the making of a varsity athlete, we'll say, but not playing D1 or anything, but just being on teams and organized sports gives you those valuable life lessons that even as you get older, you think, it's kind of like back in the day. You're like, when am I going to use this math, in my life? And geometry or trigonometry or geometry or algebra, when am I going to use this? And suddenly you're having to build a shed or something, and you find yourself using that the actual the knowledge that you didn't think was but is actually applicable now. I definitely think that um, coaches are still working hard at keeping that element in sports there, despite people thinking that, oh, money is just the only thing that they're chasing money. I think, like I said, like the playing time for Dante Moore wasn't that great at UCLA. And just think too, like if you're not really a sports person or someone who maybe has experienced that, how kind of a mature decision that really is to say, you know what, I'm going to ride the bench for a year and learn.
Mm-hmm.
For a guy like him, a 5-star number one quarterback in the country at the time he was being recruited, for most guys like that at that level of superstardom, we'll say, uh, that's kind of a hit to the ego, and you almost don't want to do that. You're like I said, the natural impulse might be, no, I'm going to sling the ball around in the Rose Bowl at UCLA until it get it right. Um, and sometimes it's kind of a sunk cost fallacy where you kind of dig yourself a deeper hole.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
kind of imagining the actual mature decision it is to be like, you know what, I have some areas to improve. Maybe this area or this setting that I'm working in isn't going to help me improve. I'm going to go maybe where I should have originally gone before or somewhere else. He could have just not gone to Oregon and gone to another great program
Mm-hmm.
and said, I'm going to learn and improve and develop behind a quarterback that I respect and behind a coach that I do respect. Now, originally his decommitment from Oregon was that the guy who recruited him, Kenny Dillingham, went on to coach at head coach at Arizona State. So he
Mm-hmm.
kind of left for coaching reasons, more just like he didn't really know Will Stein, the new offensive coordinator. So he kind of he kind of felt like maybe in no man's land, and just kind of went to UCLA. And then once he kind of saw that the new OC was he's someone I can learn under and trust, he went back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a different situation. Julian Sayin came out of Carlsbad here in San Diego. Um, Originally committed to Alabama. He wanted to play under Nick Saban. Nick Saban retires. He transfers to Ohio State and is now starting at Ohio State this year under Coach Ryan Day, and another sort of lauded coach who has proven himself to be a great developer as well. So I think there's a lot that kind of goes in behind um, a player's decision. That's more than money, but obviously you want to get the best deal you can.
Sure.
But I think luckily there are coaches out there that are sort of still holding true to the life lesson thing, the building character thing, um, making them, turning them from boys to men, if you will,
Yeah.
type of thing. Because we're talking about like revenue share, TV deals, and stuff, all that. I think it's also kind of a perfect segue into the sort of big picture conference realignment. We're sort of seeing, I think this is a lot of the reason too why people attach NIL to the destruction of college football is the conference realignment stuff, where now you have Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, all in the Big Ten now, and the Pac-12 got left with Oregon State and Washington State, and sort of regional conferences have um, uh, become a thing of the past, if you will, with Stanford and Cal in the ACC of all places. Uh, and so, but you're seeing sort of the death of the regional conference, and
Well, hey, don't forget the Big 12 over here. We picked up
that's right, the Big 12,
Arizona, Utah, and Arizona State, and who else? Colorado, I think it was, wasn't it?
Colorado. Yeah, that's right, the
And
Big 12.
BYU is there. It is.
Yeah,
So we're now the Big 25, just like,
right.
it's the Big 35 where Oregon went, right?
Right,
So,
yeah, and yeah, the Big 12 too, absorbing those other Pac-12 teams that didn't
yeah,
really make the cut for the Big 10.
right.
Um, and so the problem is though is Salty Beaver fans blame the Ducks, Wazoo fans blame the
Huskies.
Huskies, and overall though I think everyone blames USC.
Yeah.
And a lot of that though I think um, there's a level of credibility to that. But when I was sort of researching what happened to the Pac 12 over the years, and you and I sort of experienced this ourselves,
Hmm.
this was the Pac 12 conference's fault overall because
Hmm.
number one, they released the Pac 12 network because they saw um, what the SEC was doing with ESPN and so on, the Big Ten network becoming a thing too, so on and so forth. So they say, okay, we're gonna take all the old Beaver and Duck games we watched in the mid 2000s with Petros Papadakis, on the
Oh,
Versus Network
good.
or FSN, right? Yeah. uh,
That was fun.
yeah, that was a fun era.
Yes,
That was a fun
boy.
era.
That guy used to drive me crazy.
I know. Now they're kind of days that I sort of look fondly back upon, but at the time I was like, come on, don't be such a USC homer.
Yeah.
Um, but all these different sort of regional channels, the Pac-12 was like, we're not going to need you anymore. We're going to make the Pac-12 network, and then they get greedy with all the cable providers, and leading to all these cable providers being like, uh, we're just going to walk from these deals. Then you're asking for too much money. Like, go take a hike. And then after that too, so that problem there is every time we would get an email, no matter what, Comcast, Dish, DirecTV, we don't have Pac-12 this year. We couldn't strike a deal. We don't have Pac-12 network this year. We couldn't strike a deal. So you can't even see these guys. And the whole thing
Yeah.
about being on television and getting television deals is getting on television. And you're asking for,
Because it's revenue, people.
yeah. And so you're asking for too much money right off the bat. Here's the thing: when you're a new channel or a new network, you have to kind of eat crow just a little bit. Okay. If they're gonna, we want $50 million per year or whatever, and they say, right now you're new, we don't know how you're gonna take off. You're only worth like 25 to us.
Hmm.
At that point, take the deal and renegotiate later after the contract is up. Prove yourself first and say, look, these past 2 years we've been worth way more than 25 million per year.
Yeah.
Let's renegotiate and then renegotiate. Instead, you say, piss off. I want all the money right away, right off the bat. They're going to tell you to kick rocks, and now you're screwed with nothing. And then their Pac-12 might be striking a deal with ESPN, and they do the same thing. And it's no shock that a year or two later, everyone's leaving the Pac-12 conference and they're going to the Big 10 or the Big 12, where they already have deals. They already have TV deals. And Oregon, frankly, in particular, and I think Washington too, they only got a half share revenue. So they took they sort of took a pay cut versus the rest of the teams that went over to the Big 10 or Big 12 just to be on TV and exposed to the rest of the country. Like that's but as we're talking about, that revenue share hurts the programs.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, what I So I was in the business affairs office when that Pac-12 network deal started happening, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
here's how the rest of the stuff kind of works on some of that too. So the reason why bowls are important is the coaches will say, well, it gives them extra practice, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But the whole point is you want as many of your conference in the bowl games because that's pooled revenue.
Hmm.
And that revenue gets shared everywhere. So you want as many of your teams in those bowl games and sharing all that revenue and getting those cuts. So that once they pay for all your expenses to go to the bowl game, everybody that then you get a cut off that share, right? And so that's the point. That's where the bowl games really are at.
Yeah.
Right, so don't let these people fool you. It's not about getting them extra practice and all the other stuff. It's tied to cash, and it goes to the if you're in the conference, it usually goes to the conference, right? So the pack the network and I think the original reason for the network was good. I think it was sound at the beginning.
It was. Yeah,
It
for sure.
helped. It helped the smaller programs build their programs. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I can remember I can remember transferring $15 million into Oregon to the Beavers athletic department to float them until all the donor and all the ticket sales came in,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so we didn't have to after that contract came in, we wouldn't have to do that, right?
Yeah.
We knew the revenue was going to show because we had fixed revenue stream, right? So that helped those programs, those small programs. This is why Oregon State, Washington State are a little pissed off, and they should be,
Yeah.
because the big boys screwed them.
Hmm.
All right. The big boys screwed them and took advantage of them because they weren't as big a programs or big as, they weren't the big names. They had some solid athletic programs for a while there, but everything else. But they needed that money just to stay afloat and to keep moving forward and moving up.
Hmm.
So, they were being competitive.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but, when the conference itself screwed that up,
Yeah.
in my opinion, they screwed that deal by getting too greedy, and then they left the little guys out to dry. Look, Washington State and Oregon State are two big schools. I mean,
Hmm.
they're the land grant schools, and so they're all over the state, right? And so that's from an educational standpoint, those are big schools. But from a sports standpoint, they're fair to middling, right?
Yeah.
They have good years sometimes, and then they have some struggles, right? So,
Yeah.
but that's the point, is that the conferences screwed it up. The Pac-12 conference screwed that up, and
I agree.
they the network was supposed to be their cash cow, and it was working till they came in and got too greedy and didn't ease up the chain, right?
Yeah. No,
So,
I agree totally. Cause I mean, people don't really realize, or maybe they obviously know and realize it, but they don't really acknowledge it just because it's a fun trash talk point. Oregon, Oregon and Washington, the two schools in particular, as much as you hate the Huskies, they both those schools were sort of the last chopper out of Vietnam.
yeah.
Like I said, those two in particular, I'm pretty sure Washington's the same, but Oregon for sure, they took a half share of revenue just to get in the Big Ten. Originally, the Big Ten were like, we're just taking USC. Like they didn't really necessarily want them there, which made it all more funny that Oregon won the Big Ten last year. Um, but so like they're taking half of the revenue share of like bowl games and things like that from conference, um, versus everyone else. So even if Oregon won the national championship last year, versus Ohio State, they still would have gotten half the money that Ohio State would have and did. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like they were the last chopper out of Vietnam, and unfortunately Oregon State and Wazoo were the two that got left behind and have to rebuild the Pac-12 conference.
Yeah.
But I think overall, again, great trash talking points, and I won't begrudge Beaver and Cougar fans of that. But uh, like their ire is not directed at the right people in terms of it was the conference, it was not those other teams necessarily.
Yeah.
It sort of
Well,
started with USC trying to leave in the first place because again, they're the LA market.
yeah,
They're market two behind New York. They're the second biggest market in the country. And they felt that the Pac-12 networks and those media deals weren't doing it for them. They wanted more exposure type deal. So they decided to move to the Big Ten. So USC was kind of the spark on the gas of the Pac-12 that sort of lit it all on fire, if you will. So
yeah.
USC was more the symptom of the problem and not the problem. But also screw the Trojans. No, I was kidding.
Well, yeah, screw 'em. Not a fan.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
sorry, Luke, but no.
Right. We have a Trojan in our family. It's all respectful trash talk. No.
But he was a BB before that, so
Right.
it's
Yeah.
okay. So, but that's again. So I mean, all the conferences have been struggling with some of that, right? Because Big 12, they had Texas and OU leave, right?
Yep.
For the
Yep.
SEC, A&M left for the SEC, so they had to come in back and pick up some teams too. So
Yep. Yep.
this is the restructuring that's going on. Is really that's what's happening. Is where's the best capabilities for people to continue to make the revenue stream that they need to keep viable. And this is where you know this is where because these are business decisions that have to be made. This is the business part of it that you can't get away from because of the nature of what you have to do. So those are so people out there, you got to be you take your TV deals, but we all know that's why Montana States go to Oregon, right? Because it's a payday,
Yep. Yep.
because they get paid,
Yep.
and it's probably embarrassing to take your 500K for the game to get your butts handed to you.
Right.
But that builds humility in your people. It builds humbleness, and it builds the desire to get better, right? And so that you can have the other guys come into your place and you can pay them 500 to beat up on them.
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing, right? But it's going to be interesting to see how now with the revenue share portion for the players, that's coming out of that group money, right?
Yeah.
So this is where we're getting to on that is that now the players are getting cut off that revenue stream. Now it's capped at 20.5 million for the programs, each program. So if we want to, and from what I've been seeing is that, most of that, we all know most of that's going to go to football, and if you look at the roster levels, that makes sense to divide it up by the number of people on the rosters. So, I'm looking at I look at some preliminary numbers for somebody that, on one of the websites that, sometimes just kind of looking, oh, what does that break down?
Mm.
So football players, let's just take football players since that's most of what they're talking.
Yeah.
Most of the schools are really going to hit football, men's basketball, and women's basketball are the three big monies, right? Technically they're your revenue generators. Nothing else pull them money. So those are going to get the lion's share. Football is going to get the lion's share. Men's basketball is barely behind them, and then women's basketball and the rest of them. The women's field hockey team gets some money, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, we haven't. We've been. It's going to be interesting to see how the Title IX works out on some of this, because
Yeah.
I'm hearing programs are being cut and everything else to make these money things happen well, right?
Yeah.
So we got to look at it. There's going to be roster caps. So football, I think, is at 105 kids, right? So you have 105 students on there, and what I'm seeing is most of the programs are going to be putting about 15 million to the football players out of that revenue share to share with them. So I did the numbers, and what that comes out to is about 142,857 a year for 6 months' work for each dude, right? Or for the year
Hmm.
for each football player. Now, what I also noticed was they still get their NIL, they still get their scholarships, and they still get their donor collaborative monies and other things that. So this is gravy on the train, right? I mean,
Hmm.
so this is their steady income, and the rest of this becomes the gravy, right?
Yeah.
So these guys are going to be in good shape, and so the problem is that that's 20K off the top of the revenue stream to the programs, and so that comes out of their share of the revenues.
Yeah.
So now, when you look at the revenue sharing from to the programs in the conference, everybody just got whacked 20 million. Well, guess where that has to come from? Somewhere.
Yeah. Right.
So somewhere, everybody's got to find $20 million in their budget to support this stuff. So that's the kind of the conversations that are happening on campuses now. Is if I have a program and I'm in a conference, but my program is a little underwater, and I still got to pay out 20 million to my players. If I can't do that, if I can't do that across my things, and especially in football, if I can't make 142K to each player, guess what's going to happen? They're going to go where they're going to get 142K,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And they're not
Because the
necessarily to blame
NIL
for it
stay,
either.
the NIL will stay with the player because that's their stuff, right? So his NIL travels with them. That's outside the realm of all this, and so that's what's going to be interesting as we go forward to see how this is all going to play out. And I think from what I've seen in the things, I haven't looked at it super in depth, but just kind of on the surface level, the things are in place to kind of monitor this stuff and to kind of keep track of it all. So, but I know at our university, we're trying to figure out the 20 million, right? How do we do that when we're maybe breaking even or just barely above water on some of the athletic stuff, right? Because we're in a down spot or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's the point, and we're still trying to work on the donor base for some things and other things, and so from that perspective, that's the perspective everybody has to remember is that 20 million's got to come from somewhere. And so if you're not in a conference, all those guys that aren't in the big conferences making the big money, there's going to be a lot of their players looking for that $150,000 roughly paycheck, and you're not going to be able to compete with that in the smaller areas. So you're just going to have to be able to give them what you can, and hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And um so as I guess this might be a final question.
Sure.
Thank you for doing this, and this has been fun.
Yeah.
As we close
Well,
this
it is getting
discussion,
close to my bedtime
yeah,
too.
I
So
noticed. Yeah, yeah. There's a West Coast. Was it East Coast time or Central time?
I'm central.
Central. That's right. You're still
Yeah.
Central.
Yeah.
Where do you think things are going to be going in the future with everything? How do you foresee what's kind of your forecast of what the college football itself landscape is going to look like, and maybe the business side of it, how all that cash and creative sort of collides?
Well, I think, going forward, I think right now we're, as the universities are as it's really in this change mode because the rules change. We have that in other areas, like, I don't know if everybody's been hearing like the NIH is cutting down the overhead costs on the research grants and things, and that impacts us, right? That covers a lot of our building costs that we apply to the research. So we're really just recovering some of the money that we spend on those buildings and administrative stuff to monitor to do that, but also pay for the bill, right? So those costs are not necessarily those are legitimate costs to be recovered, right? And so it's just like time and materials for a construction guy, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. So here's the research, we're doing the research, and here's the activity we're doing. And then the overhead comes in, and that's for the materials and other stuff that we need to do the activity. So but we're going to see the same thing happening where we're trying to navigate that and retool our budgetary aspects on that side of it. And now we've got athletics coming in with this part of that. And so we're in this retooling mod of things that we have to do on the university campuses to, you know, do our operations, right? And what we do and providing the environment for our students to have nice entertainment and sports and, high quality educational experiences that we can provide them with some real world experience that they can take out, become productive members of society, and hopefully not cave the whole thing down. We won't go into any of that. But I
Anything
think
else?
most of the universities and stuff are in the planning mode. I don't see anything fundamental. Regulatory is going to be the big aspect at this point, how the regulations are going to come out and how the monitoring of what happens going forward is going to happen. And we'll just have to see how many of the kids are really into the money and how many of them are into the, because they're there for the educational aspect of it and they're going to get their education. That's the other part of it. These guys that move around all over, your educational experience sucks.
Yeah. How could it really be, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you're just getting, you could do all that online, right? And
Mm,
Coursera.
right.
So, just go to the pros already,
Yeah.
but that's the other fallacy is that, they have to go to college before they can go to the pros. Well, that's stupid in this case now. It's not going to be worth, why are we making the colleges waste resources on guys who are just going to bounce around so they can get out? So, there's a lot of things that need to be worked out. I think for the most part we'll get there and settle into the right norm again, but right now the norm's kind of messed up. And
Yeah.
so the bottom line is we just want to enjoy some football. We want to enjoy some good basketball. We want
Yeah.
to enjoy the sports. We want to be able to go to the games. Part of the atmosphere is awesome. It's a lot of fun to be at the games and everything else. And it brings the community together. It does a lot of positive stuff. Brings revenue into the community as well from the visiting. There's a lot of positives about it. We just got to ride this out until everything's settled out and we get to the 90-day norm, the new base. So I think we'll all get there. It's just who's got to get paid and who's got to get all this stuff done to get it all done. So
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the future is as dystopian as others will paint it out to be. There are obviously some improvements that need to be made, some tweaks, and it's like a beta system of a software. You just find the bugs, fix them as you go, patch them up, and everything like that. I don't think it's neither utopian or dystopian. There will be again some issues that need to be handled, but for now, it's sort of just a wait and see approach and just enjoy the ride.
yeah, well, like anything else in life, it's in the balance point that matters. It's not the swings to the extremes, right?
Exactly.
And so we've got too many of the extremes going on in society today. We just need to find the right balance.
Agree totally. Dad, thank you for doing
Yes,
this.
sir.
You were a fantastic first guest. Hopefully,
Thanks, man.
we can do this another time too.
Yeah, we'll do that, man. Love you, buddy.
Love you
And we'll see
too.
you later.
All right. See ya.